Hello, and welcome to Adventures in TV Land. Now this video is going to be a little bit different from many of the other videos you will find on the channel. It's not going to be a food review, it's not going to be a movie review, it's not going to be a travel vlog or anything like that. I just want to take a moment to talk about the Walt Disney Company. Now I made a video somewhat similar to this about a year ago. I do have a small piece of Walt Disney stock that I've had for several years. I have not sold it. So I am a shareholder in the company. Now a year ago, there was an attempt to shake up the board of directors of the Walt Disney Company. I was all for that. Unfortunately, those bids, the two attempts, because there was two different groups that were trying to get something done on the board. They failed. They failed. They didn't get the majority that they needed. They did get quite a few votes. If you go back and actually look, don't listen to the Disney corporate part of it, the actual, the mouthpieces of it. But if you actually look at what happened, a much larger percentage than was expected voted against Bob Iger, voted against the board. It didn't come close to the 50% or over 50% that would be needed, but it came closer than many people had expected. Fortunately now, this year, the Walt Disney Company is in worse shape than it was a year ago, and the same board remains. Bob Iger still remains as the CEO and president, and Josh Tomorrow is in charge of the parks, and the company is in trouble. And it saddens me the way what has happened to the Walt Disney Company. I mean, I grew up watching Disney movies. Walt Disney was a person who, when I was growing up, that we were taught, and when you learned about him, I mean, it was someone you wanted to aspire to be. I know they're just like anyone. If you look into his life as a whole, I mean, the little pieces of his life, there were things that you would disagree with, but as a whole, he was someone you wanted to aspire to, who did something. He was considered American and a piece of Americana. His parks were, and the movies were family movies that could be seen and watched the whole wide world over. And that is no longer the case, unfortunately. I don't know. Recent changes, specifically in the parks, that are very disheartening. And, the one thing that if it happens, goes through, which is paving over the rivers of America at Magic Kingdom and Walt Disney World to put in this Cars attraction. If that goes through, the Magic Kingdom will never be the same. Walt Disney World will never be the same. And it will be changed irrevocably forever. And there's no reason for it. There's no reason to do what they're doing where they are doing it, other than they don't like that area of the park, and they don't understand anything, I guess, anymore about aesthetic beauty and about, what makes the Disney magic, what made it. Because the Disney magic doesn't exist anymore. I don't know when it disappeared, but it no longer exists. It's not there. There's no Disney difference. Disney, instead of becoming, what other companies aspire to be like, they are becoming what other companies are aspiring to not be like. And they're very overpriced. They're too expensive for most average people to go to. Even that lifetime one-time family trip to Walt Disney World, which honestly, Walt Disney World used to not be that way, or for families and things throughout the country. They wouldn't have to save up to just go to Walt Disney World once in a lifetime. It was an experience they could experience 2 or 3 times as a family throughout their life. I mean, as their children, when they came back and brought their children, maybe with their grandparents, and then when they were older as maybe grandparents or whatever. I mean, they all saved up, make a big family trip, and it was something you did 2 or 3, 4 times in your life. Maybe not every year, but because it was affordable enough that you could do that. Now it is so expensive that an average family, they can barely even make that once in a lifetime trip of trying to go there. In all honesty, now there are other parks that are far better to go to as families, that are less expensive and actually are catering towards those families. I'm looking at you, Universal, because you've been doing a good job. Anyway, so I just wanted to make this video again one more time, another year. It's a year later, but because the company is in worse shape than it was, I am not going to sell my little stock that I have. I'm going to keep that. It was not. I never did that as an investment. If I had been a serious investor in the company, I would be selling a lot of my stock at this point. I did it years ago. I was able to get a little bit of stock just as a way. It was a company that at the time, was still supported, grew up with, and everything like that, and so I did. But that's not really the case anymore. I've received my notice of the annual meeting. The annual shareholder meeting is coming up here, and it'll be held in April. And I can make my vote. There's not a whole lot to vote for other than really the board members. There's also a few items at the board on the agenda. Ratification of appointment of PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP as the company's independent registered public accountants for fiscal 2025. That's a basic thing. I will be voting for that. The board says they are for that. Consideration of an advisory vote to approve executive compensation. And a shareholder proposal, if properly presented at the meeting, requesting a report on climate risk to retirement plan beneficiaries. The board is recommending against that. I will be voting for that, as well as shareholder proposal, if properly presented at the meeting, requesting consideration of participation in the Human Rights Campaign's Corporate Equality Index. I'm not for sure about the Human Rights Campaign, but because the board is against that, I'm going to vote for it. As well as this one, shareholder proposal, if properly presented at the meeting, requesting a report on risk related to the selection of ad buyers and sellers. I think that's very important. The board is against that. I think that's very important, especially for all those advertisers, all those companies out there who have been supporting the Walt Disney Company, have continued to give them advertising dollars and buying advertising dollars on their, Disney Plus and ABC and things like that. The board is against that. I will be voting for that. In addition, I will be voting against the election of the entire board of directors, every single one of them. I'm sure they will receive a majority vote, but I will be voting against them. And so I would encourage you, if you are a shareholder, if you are able to. I have not been able to at this point. Maybe someday in the future I will actually be able to attend the shareholder meeting in person and actually make my vote heard there in person, and won't be given the chance to speak because they don't like that. They try to stop that, especially the past several years. They don't like the shareholders actually getting a voice and being able to ask questions and speaking. But anyway, maybe someday I'll be able to attend the meeting in person, but I'm not. So I'm just sharing with you how I am going to vote. And I would encourage you, even if you disagree with what I have stated here, that if you are a Disney shareholder, make your vote. Vote. It is a very, very small way, other than with your pocketbook, and then writing a direct letter to the company, that you can make your voice heard. And maybe, perhaps, stop some of the chaos that has been going on. Well, I thank you for watching, and until next time, that's a wrap.